Welcome to Inside the Lane, a focus segment of the Our Parking Industry podcast hosted by TPN.
In this segment, we explore the ideas, innovations, and conversations shaping the parking industry, from industry partners to timely topics impacting the parking experience.
These short episodes create space to spotlight organizations, share perspectives, and dive into what's new and noteworthy across our industry.
Let's step inside the lane.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Inside the Lane. Today, I am in the studio with Henry Broback from Plix. We're so glad he's joining us today. Henry and I met at NPA last fall. Is that right? Just last year, Henry?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in Indianapolis, right?
Exactly.
Yes. So we were both kind of new little jitters on the expo floor, and Henry and I were very fast friends. I think we enjoyed getting to know each other and swapping business cards. So Henry, thank you for coming today. Tell us about Plix.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I think the show for both of us was super informative, and I'm glad that we got the chance to meet. Yeah, Plix Plix is a body camera platform that's built really specifically for folks like parking enforcement officers and those who, maybe haven't worn a camera before or managed something like this before. But, just like, you may go into, say, a Zoom meeting or a type of meeting that has a note taker, we want people in the field to be able to have this. And that could be for a few reasons. And that's actually something that we learned at NPA and, at some other shows is, there's a need for documentation in safety, customer service, and just out in the field where other places don't have it. A lot of organizations that we met, whether it's municipalities or private enforcement, have, say, dash cameras in vehicles where they can document a car accident, but nothing on people that can document an interaction. And so what we have is this camera that's probably the size and weight of a deck of cards and sits, right in the middle near the heart. And what it does is it can actually track and listen for things that are relevant so that the device is relatively hands-free. So if you're an enforcement officer, you're wearing this camera out in the field each day. And we have people that do a lot of on-street enforcement. We do have some valets who wear it as well. But for on-street enforcement, they're, issuing citations and taking videos of those citations. The reason they're doing that is early in our journey into parking, I did a couple ride-alongs and saw some instances of people that were, arguing against citations and sometimes getting very aggressive. I've been told stories of a couple incidents that, sometimes people had coffee or different liquids thrown at them. Sometimes people were pushed and, had some physical incidents. And, in one case, there was actually someone even who had a knife thrown at them. I just saw this.
My.
Yeah, I saw this last week. The purpose of Plix in these types of incidents is in every case that I heard, there was an argument about the citation before it happened. And, putting the camera on does one of two things. One, it documents it so that if it happens, organizations, municipalities, they can actually have some sort of proof to make sure that there's a consequence. Recently we had somebody who was threatened, and then our camera activated, and the person who made the threat then tried to run over that officer with their car. And this was, for a $35 ticket, it's hard to believe.
Overreacting on aisle 5, overreacting.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, that was the first time that organization was actually able to prosecute and go after somebody who's clearly trying to make the officer's job unsafe. And so that's one piece of what it's doing. But the other piece is it just serves as a deterrent. The idea with Plix and the technology we're building is we do want to document things when they happen, but we also want to prevent things from happening in the first place. And so, both for officers and people that are out in the field, this is, a way to really bring the temperature down. We've seen a strong reduction. I think it's north of 80% now in the amount of incidents that occur in the first place. Recently took a walk on a street here in California where Plix cameras are deployed with officers. And I approached an officer. I said, "Hey, I work with Plix, but my boss isn't here. Your boss isn't here. What do you actually think about this?" And she said there are just way less incidents. There are people that harassed her every single day. And she said some of these people even said, like, "Oh, I can't bother you anymore. Like, I'm on camera, so I can't do anything anymore." And then one officer told me it was the first time in over a month that they hadn't been spit on or just harassed. And so people don't deserve that, and we're trying to really mitigate that, which has been a good success so far.
Wow. Okay, so how does the Plix camera work? Does it just run all the time, or is it on off on off?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a couple modes that the camera can run in. When officers take their camera at the beginning of the day, they're activating what's called a shift mode. In that shift mode, it's doing two things. It's providing officers locations to their supervisor in case there's an emergency. And then the other piece that it can do is it has the ability to transcribe audio. So if it detects there's an escalation, it will start recording on the officer's behalf, because one thing we heard a lot is that people just forget to press the record button. If somebody's yelling at you, you're usually not like, "Hey, hold on just a second, I need to press record." So that's one mode that we have, is that shift mode. Now, if officers know they're going into a specific interaction, they can press a record button to start a video. But the reason that we have the shift mode is in the event that something has happened, or even just a potential complaint that's about to come in. Officers also have the ability to press a report button. And this is where it gets very similar to like an AI note taker on Zoom or something. They can just describe what happened, maybe say a license plate number and, what they want to convey. And our camera will write a report for them that then automatically goes to their supervisor. So it makes everything very automatic. But long answer to your question, yes, it's on off based on incidents automatically, and then reporting when officers feel like they want to jot something down without having to use paper and pen.
Wow, it sounds like it has so many tools right there, a little deck of cards on your chest. Okay.
Exactly.
So who is buying Plex cameras now? Where are they useful, and where do you see them going? Like maybe they're not in an industry or a segment of an industry yet, but like where are they going?
Yeah, yeah. So our evolution into parking started with, one we built for private sector first. And so we started working with private security. And, what we learned is highlighting incidents and, giving supervisors visibility early is something that didn't exist because other things were prioritized, like, law enforcement cameras have activation with weapons and things like that that most people don't have. We had some customers who did enforcement of parking lots privately. And so from there, I got an intro to a couple of our early customers. But the folks using it right now mainly are using it when they're doing on street enforcement. I think that is the biggest area where there's a gap in safety and documentation right now. And so we have a number of municipalities who are deployed, and then a number of private companies that work with municipalities or even their own private lots where they're deployed. Otherwise, with that reporting tool, one other group that is using us are folks with valet wings of their companies. That way, they can use that report tool to document the condition of a car before and after it's come through the lot. And if there's any sort of he said, she said situation, we're preventing that.
Okay. Well, Henry, if any of our listeners are intrigued and want to call and talk to you, how do they reach you? Just go ahead and give us your contact information, spell it all out right here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple ways you can reach me. One of them, I would email me directly. I'm happy to, set up some time to chat. My email directly is Henry at Plix. That's going to be P as in Paul, Lix dot AI. So Henry at Plix AI, you can email me, or you can always reach out directly to my cell. Happy to, set up some time. My phone number is 952-232-8745.
Excellent. Henry, thank you for being here and telling us about Plix. Listeners, thanks for joining us today on Inside the Lane. Have a great rest of your day.
The parking industry is always evolving, and so are the conversations around it.
So come back each month to Inside the Lane for insights, ideas, and solutions.
We invite you to follow, subscribe, and join TPN and featured vendors on social media to stay up to date.
Thanks for being with us inside the lane.